It was a Wednesday evening in London. Nothing seemed out of place. Sarah Everard had just finished spending time with friends in Clapham. She was walking home, something she had done countless times before. The evening was calm, the streets lit by streetlights as she made her way down familiar roads. She was talking to her boyfriend on the phone, laughing, making plans for the next day. Just a typical conversation for a typical night. But this was no ordinary night. At around 9 p.m., Sarah said goodbye to her boyfriend, told him she was almost home, and hung up. She was just a short 50-minute walk away from her house in Brixton, a route she had walked hundreds of times. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, nothing to suggest that this walk would be the last one she ever took. But by 9:30 p.m., Sarah would be gone. No one knew where she went. No one knew what happened. Minutes later, her phone went silent. No messages. No calls. She never made it home. The clock ticked on, but Sarah was nowhere to be found. She had simply vanished. The police would soon launch a search. They combed through hours of CCTV footage, retraced her steps, and spoke to anyone who might have seen something. But Sarah was nowhere. Days passed. The search intensified. The community, her family, friends, and strangers from across the country all joined in the effort to find Sarah. Missing person posters were plastered all over the city. Social media was flooded with posts. The entire country watched as the police revealed new clues. Yet, with each passing day, the mystery grew deeper. For days, the whole of London was gripped by a chilling uncertainty. Was Sarah still alive? Had something terrible happened to her? Was there a chance she would be found? But then, the unthinkable happened. A clue surfaced, one that would change everything. But what it revealed was far darker than anyone had imagined. What happened to Sarah? Where did she go in those final, terrifying minutes? The answers lay in places no one could have predicted. And soon, a secret would be uncovered, one that no one saw coming, a revelation that would forever change the way we look at this case. What do you think happened to Sarah that night? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever felt uneasy walking home at night? Let us know. Sarah Everard was more than just a name in a news story. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a woman with big dreams. Born in 1987, Sarah grew up in Dover, a small town in Kent. From a young age, she was known for her intelligence, ambition, and a genuine warmth that made her easy to be around. Sarah had always been driven and focused on building a career that would allow her to make a real impact. She wasn't just a woman going through the motions, she was a woman determined to succeed. After completing her studies, Sarah moved to London, where she began her career in public relations. She quickly made a name for herself in the PR industry, working with a number of high-profile clients and building a strong network of colleagues and mentors. Her passion for the work she did was evident to anyone who met her. It was clear that Sarah was not just looking for a job, but for a way to make a real difference in the world. Sarah was known for her infectious laugh, her ability to connect with people, and her warmth. Those who knew her often described her as someone who could light up a room with her presence. She had an innate ability to make people feel seen and heard, and it wasn't long before she developed close friendships in the city. Beyond her career, Sarah had passions that made her unique. She loved exploring the city, going to restaurants, visiting museums, and spending time with her close circle of friends. Sarah was the kind of person who enjoyed the simple pleasures of life, the kind of woman who believed in the power of friendship and community. She had a strong bond with her family, too. Sarah was incredibly close to her parents, Jeremy and Diana Everard, who often praised her for her thoughtfulness and kind heart. Her younger sister, Katie, and her brother, James, were also an important part of her life. They saw Sarah as someone who was always there for them, offering guidance and love when it was needed most. Her career was on the rise, her social life was thriving, and her family was proud of her accomplishments. Sarah had everything going for her, the future was bright. But like many young women in their 30s, she also faced the challenges of living in a bustling, fast-paced city. The streets of London, while full of opportunities, were not always the safest place to be. Sarah had no idea that in the shadows of the city, danger was waiting. But what could have led to the horrifying events that followed? The streets were quiet, the occasional sound of cars passing by, the hum of the city growing fainter as she made her way down Leithwaite Road. The world around her seemed perfectly ordinary. By 9:13 p.m., Sarah was already on the phone with her boyfriend, discussing plans for the next day. A normal, everyday conversation, nothing alarming or out of the ordinary. She reassured him she was almost home. The call ended as she reached the corner of Poinders Road, not far from her destination. At 9:17 p.m., Sarah passed through the intersection of Poinders Road and South Circular Road, the camera capturing her movements as she continued walking south toward Brixton. She appeared calm, moving with confidence through the deserted streets. No one suspected anything was wrong, no one noticed the moment that was about to change everything. By 9:30 p.m., Sarah had walked out of the camera's frame, and that would be the last time anyone would see her. She vanished into the darkness. At that moment, something happened. She had simply disappeared. The search for Sarah began almost immediately, with her family and friends frantically trying to reach her. But there was no response. Her phone's signal stopped tracking. By 10 p.m., she was officially missing. Despite an immediate investigation, no one had seen Sarah after the last footage of her walking down Poinders Road. The hours passed with no new clues, only unanswered questions. The search for Sarah was intensifying, but as the investigation stretched into the days ahead, the mystery deepened. As the days went by, the entire city held its breath. Sarah's story was everywhere. The police continued their search, reviewing every possible lead, retracing her steps, questioning every potential witness. But still, no one knew what happened, those critical moments when Sarah disappeared without a trace. Then, just as the investigation began to stall, a breakthrough came. But it wasn't the answer anyone was hoping for. It would change everything, revealing a truth that no one could have anticipated. Sarah vanished without a trace. How could this happen in central London? It was clear, something terrible had happened to Sarah Everard. The Metropolitan Police launched a full-scale investigation into her disappearance, and the City of London was soon gripped by the fear that something sinister had taken place. Her family and friends were devastated, their worst fears realized as they held out hope for her safe return. Sarah had never gone missing before. Her absence was unlike anything they had ever experienced. This was no ordinary case. As the hours passed, Sarah's story spread beyond her immediate circle. The public outcry was immediate, as everyone in London, then across the country, became aware of the young woman's disappearance. News outlets picked up the story, and soon the story of Sarah's vanishing in the heart of London became the talk of the nation. The police were under intense pressure. They had to find Sarah, or at least answers. The investigation intensified. Missing person alerts were sent out across every media channel. Officers canvassed the area, visiting neighbors, questioning anyone who might have seen or heard something that could shed light on her disappearance. Within hours, a team of detectives was assigned to lead the investigation. The pressure was mounting. The city was waiting for an answer. Every possibility was explored. Was it a random act of violence? Had Sarah been targeted, or was this simply a case of someone being in the wrong place at the wrong time? The police didn't waste any time. They began by examining all available CCTV footage, retracing Sarah's steps from Clapham to Brixton. They hoped that someone might have seen something, anything, that could provide a clue. But after hours of reviewing footage, the investigation seemed to stall. The breakthrough they desperately needed hadn't come yet. Then, just as the investigation seemed to plateau, they found something. Something that would change everything. Then they found security footage that changed everything. As the investigation into Sarah Everard's disappearance gained momentum, a new piece of evidence emerged, one that would send shockwaves through the entire country. It wasn't just that Sarah had vanished from the streets of London, now the search for her was about to uncover an even more horrifying reality. On March 9, 2021, just days after Sarah's disappearance, police arrested Wayne Couzens, a Metropolitan Police officer. The man responsible for protecting the people of London was now suspected of being involved in one of the most high-profile crimes the city had seen in recent years. Couzens, 48, had been with the Metropolitan Police for over a decade. He had served in various departments, most recently in the Diplomatic Protection Group, a unit tasked with providing security for government buildings and foreign embassies. He had been entrusted with the responsibility of protecting London's most vulnerable, including public figures and foreign dignitaries. By all outward appearances, Couzens was just another officer in the force. A man with a family, a home, and a career. But beneath that uniform was a man with a dark secret. One that had been hidden in plain sight for years. Couzens' background seemed unremarkable at first. He had joined the force in 2002, after a career in the private security sector. He worked hard, built a reputation as a reliable officer, and eventually gained the trust of his superiors. However, what wasn't immediately apparent was that Couzens had been involved in a string of troubling incidents prior to the crime he would soon be accused of. In 2015, Couzens had been investigated for an alleged indecent exposure incident, but he was never charged. Despite this, he continued to rise through the ranks, earning the trust of his colleagues and the public. The signs were there, but they had been ignored. His past was a shadow that should have raised red flags, yet no one acted. In the days leading up to Sarah's disappearance, Couzens had been on duty. But by the time he was arrested, the details of his involvement in Sarah's abduction and murder were becoming clearer. Investigators had discovered that Sarah had been abducted by force in a disturbing incident that, tragically, began in the very heart of London. In the wake of his arrest, investigators began piecing together the details of Sarah's final moments. Evidence showed that Couzens had used his police-issued vehicle to abduct Sarah on March 3, just after she walked down Pointers Road. The abduction was quick, calculated, and brutal. For Sarah, it would be the start of a terrifying ordeal. How could a serving officer become a killer in plain sight? The breakthrough began with the discovery of Wayne Couzens' hire car. The vehicle had been seen in CCTV footage near key locations, and investigators quickly traced its movements on the night of Sarah's disappearance. Couzens' car had been seen in the Clapham area, and mobile phone data revealed another startling connection. Sarah's phone had pinged near the same location just before her signal was lost. The data painted a chilling picture. Sarah had crossed paths with Couzens, and the timeline was now clearer than ever. He had followed her, perhaps waiting for the right moment to strike. Witness testimonies also began to provide new details. One witness reported seeing a police car in the area at around the same time Sarah was walking home. The car was moving slowly, almost as if it was waiting for something to happen. That car, it would turn out, was Couzens' police vehicle. As the pieces started to fall into place, the investigation team honed in on Couzens' movements. With mobile data, CCTV footage, and witness statements, they now had enough evidence to confirm his involvement. But despite this progress, there was still one pressing question: where was Sarah now? The discovery of Couzens' involvement had finally provided the breakthrough the police had been desperately searching for, but they still had to find her. Time was of the essence. The search expanded into the wooded areas of Kent, where the data suggested Sarah's final location. The investigation was at a critical juncture, and every minute counted. They finally had a location, but time was running out. The investigation into Sarah Everard's disappearance had taken a harrowing turn. Thanks to critical evidence, Couzens' hire car, mobile phone data, and witness testimonies, the police were now certain that Wayne Couzens was the man responsible. On March 9, 2021, Couzens was arrested at his home in Deal, Kent. The police, armed with mounting evidence, were prepared to question him about his involvement in Sarah's abduction. But when faced with the accusations, Couzens denied any involvement, claiming innocence. His calm demeanor in the face of the allegations was chilling. The arrest was just the beginning, but it wasn't an easy one. Couzens's initial denial left investigators puzzled. He claimed to have no knowledge of Sarah's abduction. However, despite his calm exterior, the mounting evidence against him was undeniable. He was the last person seen with Sarah, his phone data and the hire car tracks put him at the scene of the crime. His denials only seemed to deepen the suspicion surrounding him. But as the questioning continued, something began to change. The weight of the evidence, the phone data, the CCTV footage, and the witness testimonies, slowly broke down Couzens's resolve. After hours of relentless questioning, he finally admitted his involvement in the crime. In a shocking confession, Couzens revealed that he had abducted Sarah on that fateful night, using his police vehicle to force her into the car. He recounted the chilling events in detail, explaining how he had taken her to a secluded area before ultimately ending her life. The confession, while shocking, was not the end of the story. It raised even more chilling questions. How had a man, trusted to protect the public, descended into such a monstrous act? How could a police officer, sworn to uphold the law, become a killer in plain sight? Couzens's confession exposed the dark truth behind his seemingly ordinary life as a police officer. The investigation into his background would reveal even more troubling details, his history of misconduct and his previous involvement in an indecent exposure incident that had been overlooked years before. Do you think he would have confessed without the evidence? Comment below. Following Wayne Couzens's confession, the search for Sarah Everard's remains intensified. The chilling details of the crime were now clear, but the one question that remained unanswered was, where was Sarah's body? Couzens had revealed the horrific truth, but the physical evidence was still missing. The investigation team was under immense pressure to recover her remains and provide her family with the closure they desperately needed. On March 10, 2021, just one day after Couzens's arrest and confession, police officers, along with forensic teams, began scouring the wooded areas near Ashford, Kent. It was here that Couzens had led them. The area was remote and isolated, a vast patch of woodland that could easily have concealed something, or someone. Forensic teams, aided by sniffer dogs, moved through the dense undergrowth, carefully collecting soil samples, sifting through debris, and marking potential evidence. They were searching for anything that could provide a clue, any evidence that would confirm the location of Sarah's body. The search was painstaking, each hour that passed adding to the heavy weight of uncertainty. But at 4:45 p.m., the breakthrough finally came. Human remains were discovered, hidden beneath a pile of branches and leaves. It was Sarah. The forensic teams immediately began their work, securing the site and preparing for a thorough examination. The recovery of Sarah's remains marked the final chapter of a tragic journey. The evidence that had been recovered would now be analyzed in the hopes of uncovering more details about her final moments. Forensic analysis would offer insight into how Sarah had met her fate, but it also raised new, haunting questions. What had happened in those final hours? How had Couzens carried out the crime, and what did it mean for Sarah's family to finally have her back, yet knowing the horrific truth? Now, with the remains recovered, the final step was to piece together the details of Sarah's final hours through forensic analysis. Every detail, every fragment, would be examined for evidence that could shed light on the exact sequence of events. What did the pathologist reveal about Sarah's final hours? The recovery of Sarah Everard's remains marked the beginning of a new chapter in the fight for justice. The discovery had given Sarah's family the closure they so desperately needed, but it also opened the door to the horrifying details that would soon be revealed in court. The case against Wayne Couzens was about to go to trial, and the nation was watching. As the trial began in October 2021, the courtroom was packed with tension. The evidence was clear. Couzens's confession had detailed every moment of Sarah's abduction and murder. He had used his police-issued vehicle to abduct her, driving her to a secluded area where he would commit his crime. The brutality of it all was laid bare before the court. The trial revealed the full extent of Couzens' actions, the carefully calculated steps he took to abduct Sarah, the way he used his authority as a police officer to exploit his power, and the cold, heartless manner in which he ended her life. The public was stunned. How could someone trusted to protect the public descend into such unspeakable violence? But as the trial went on, a deep sense of anger began to grow, not just in the courtroom, but across the country. Protests erupted nationwide, a cry for justice and a demand for change. Women took to the streets, demanding safer environments, stricter policing, and an end to violence against women. The case had ignited a firestorm of public debate about the trust between the police and the people they were sworn to protect. The sentencing came in September 2021. Couzens was sentenced to life in prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 30 years. The judge's words were chilling as he described the brutality of the crime and the profound violation of trust that Couzens' actions had represented. For Sarah's family, the sentencing was a moment of justice, but it would never bring their daughter back. Despite the sentencing, the case sparked a deeper conversation. One that went beyond this individual tragedy. The outcry was not just for justice, but for systemic change. People began to question the role of the police, the handling of sexual violence cases, and the larger issue of violence against women. For many, the case symbolized a turning point in how society views these issues. As the country processed the aftermath, a crucial question lingered: could the police ever regain the public's trust after one of their own had committed such a heinous act? The scandal had shaken the foundations of law enforcement, and the road to rebuilding that trust would be long and fraught with challenges. Even after justice, the debate over police trust was far from over. In the aftermath of Sarah Everard's tragic death, her case became a turning point for the nation. The trial and public outcry had exposed not only the monstrous actions of Wayne Couzens but also the systemic issues surrounding police conduct, women's safety, and the deep-rooted fears that women face every day in public spaces. Sarah's story ignited a widespread conversation, one that demanded change. The public protests and rallies, including the famous Reclaim These Streets movement, were a catalyst for action. Women from all walks of life rallied together, standing up not only for Sarah but for every woman who has ever felt unsafe walking the streets. The public demand for change was loud and unyielding. As the conversation shifted, lawmakers took notice. Calls for change began to ripple through Parliament. Changes to laws regarding police accountability, violence against women, and public safety were soon discussed with urgency. The government promised to strengthen efforts to protect women and rebuild trust in law enforcement, though the road ahead would be challenging. But for Sarah's family, no amount of legislation could bring back the woman they had lost. Their grief was immeasurable, but they found strength in knowing that Sarah's legacy would inspire a push for safer streets for women everywhere. Her death had sparked a change, an awareness, a sense of urgency that could not be ignored. Sarah's legacy endures in every step toward a world where women can walk freely, without fear. Her life, her spirit, and the love of her family have become symbols of the fight for justice. The change Sarah's case ignited may not be instantaneous, but it's a step in the right direction toward building a safer world. Sarah Everard's story is one that will forever be etched in our hearts. Her legacy is a beacon of change in the ongoing fight for women's safety. Her tragic death sparked not only a movement for justice but also a national conversation on the steps we must take to make our streets safer. The fight isn't over, and it's one that continues with every voice, every march, and every law passed. In honor of Sarah, we must never stop pushing for a world where no woman is ever forced to walk in fear again. Let her memory be the fuel that keeps the fight alive. If you've been moved by Sarah's story and want to be part of the change, hit subscribe and join the conversation. We want to hear from you. What do you think needs to be done to keep women safe in our cities? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And, if you believe in the power of change, don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story like this. Your voice matters, and together, we can create a safer world for everyone. Next time on our channel, we'll uncover a case that shook the very foundation of our justice system. A story of legal flaws, shocking revelations, and a quest for justice that took years to achieve. This case will leave you questioning how far the law really goes to protect the innocent. You won't want to miss this. Stay tuned, subscribe, and make sure to turn on the notification bell, because the next story is just as gripping as Sarah's. See you in the next episode.